This week in the Weekly Ramble, I wanted to discuss what I call the Hellraiser effect. I think for every individual in art, or just a lot in life, sometimes you see something that just clicks. Like, this makes sense. This is the way it's supposed to be. I think for me, Hellraiser, and for a lot of other artists, I think Hellraiser was that moment. I've seen my favorite musician, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. He's discussed influences of Hellraiser in the past. The Wachowskis, who went on to make The Matrix and Cloud Atlas, they were actually writers for the comic Hellraiser, which I had the privilege and opportunity to read some of their comics back in the day. And they did some good work that, in my opinion, echoes what they would later go on to do in their films, The Matrix, and even some of their later work. I watched Hellraiser probably, way too young. I was probably about 9, 10, who knows. I kind of ended up catching it on HBO one night when I wasn't supposed to be watching TV or something, and it was a game changer for me back then because it was so unique, it was so different. I think with Hellraiser, for the first time, you really embodied, to a certain extent, this concept of a dark evil that just did not care. And that was pretty scary and very impactful. These weren't guys, these Cenobites, these individuals, Pinhead, these weren't individuals who were going around cracking jokes while they chased you. And they were not attacking, teenagers who were out drinking and partying. They were deadly serious, and that was much more chilling than any kind of monster movie, horror movie, supernatural movie I'd seen at the time. There was a precision to what they did that was scary. Another thing that is fascinating about Hellraiser is, for the first time, you really, in my opinion, you see the idea of horror almost made into a science. And it's not science fiction, but yet there is a logistical and a logical element to this evil that you hadn't necessarily seen before. You didn't just have curses turning people into monsters or full moons. It was really a case where, especially in Hellbound Hellraiser 2, you see that there's a little bit of a process. And this is really interesting because for the first time, it creates a logical pattern, progression, and flow to things. Whereas before, in a horror movie, a supernatural movie, it was pretty much just because the director said, because I say so. Because I say so, this will be evil. Because I say so, this will be a ghost. That, that supernatural aspect of things kind of left so much room. And for the first time in Hellraiser, you see that really, really connected. Then, of course, there is the puzzle box. I think every artist appreciates this idea of the puzzle box and really what it signifies, especially from the perspective of Hellraiser. Basically, in order to start this spiral into darkness, an individual has to become obsessed with solving a puzzle. And every writer, sits down, sifting through words, sentences, ideas, trying to structure a story. Every painter looks at a canvas and decides which color is going to bring this to life. Every sculptor looks at clay and analyzes it and obsesses over it, trying to form something inside it. So it's never been, I think, as perfectly illustrated quite like it was to Hellraiser. You can open doorways with the right amount of obsession, with the right amount of focus. And so I think that there was something in that idea that really impacted me, that really left the idea of obsession. And I think that you see a lot of references in that in Hellraiser. The references of Shenard with his obsession to understand what is going on with these boxes and with all the material he's looked into. There's an obsession, and then there's an obsession with Frank in the first individual as he's just trying to open this box because he believes it will bring him all his dreams and gifts that he's always wanted. And then there's just the pure analytical problem solving of Tiffany as she's sitting in the room with her box. And so it is a good just metaphor, I think, for artists in general. And I think it's how we attack what we do. Another standout thing about Hellraiser is that it's done in a very sophisticated manner. It is at times kind of beautiful. If you look at the soundtrack of Christopher Young, who for a long, long time was a hero of mine, instead of having your basic ominous type of background soundtrack, he paints and creates something that is beautiful, that is eloquent, that at times kind of echoes the idea of a fairy tale. And so all these different layers, when they come together in this package that is Hellraiser, they paint such a unique picture that was different than everything else that I had ever seen, that I think many people had ever seen. And so I think that we have seen the effects and the things that have followed from that movie a great deal, at least in certain aspects of today's art, filmmakers, and musicians.